So an interesting thing about extroversion, you hear a lot of things like bad advice. One of the things that people say is, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you need to listen twice as much as you speak. Doesn't that sound so wonderful and virtuous and amazing and Christ-like? It's stupid. It's absolutely robustly stupid. If I were doing that today, you would all leave and want your money back. It wouldn't work. In this setting, I need to do most of the talking. It's essential. Okay? If I go home tonight and something is on my wife's mind, it will be the reverse. I will listen 90%. Do you know how much you're supposed to talk and how much you're supposed to listen? You're supposed to talk until you're understood, and you're supposed to listen until you understand. That's the perfect formula. Okay? And sometimes it's going to be different according to the setting. And we have this false rule. You know what you should be aware of mostly? The person in a one-on-one conversation looks at you and said, you need to be like Jesus and listen twice as much as you speak. Because they ain't planning on doing it if you do the math. Okay? So it's super important that we know what communication actually is about and how we can actually get there. So I'm going to talk about how you can interact with personality types that are different than yours. So one of the things about this is that Myers-Briggs it's binary. You are either introverted or extroverted. You are either feeling or thinking. And that's not the way people are. Extroversion is a great example of this. This really is, to be technical about it, you know that in science, things don't gain cold, they lose heat, right? Okay? And that's kind of philosophical, but scientific. Well, when it comes to extroversion, it's really about how much extroversion you have. Because everybody has at least a little bit of extroversion, and that's the way you would really look at it. Now, we use introversion and extroversion because it makes more sense just in conversation, but you kind of want to look at it that way, that it's a spectrum. It's not either or. I am introverted or I am not, because sometimes you're interacting with a person who says they're introverted and you're like, no, you're not. Now, it could be their virtue, but it could also be the setting. Every one of these big 5 has 6 subordinate traits, almost like the virtues have daughter virtues, if you're familiar with the daughter virtues, like 64 virtues, right? What are those and how do they relate in here? So that's fascinating. Not all extroverted people are the same. Not all open people are the same. Not all conscientious people are the same. So you break this down. When you take this test, I'm going to tell you, you should take the test as though your mom, dad, brothers, and sisters are with you. Okay? Because they're going to go, no, you're not. We all have a tendency to flatter ourselves in that. You know, oh, I'm exceptional at exceptional and exceptional. No, you're not. And neither am I. Now, we're working on it. Okay? Withdrawn, recluse, passive, socially reserved, low energy, avoids stimulation. Excessive, attention-seeking, impulsive, loud, intrusive, dependent on external validation. We love to be around both extroverts and introverts at different times. We love to be around extroverts when we want to feel fun and, you know, and like there's, you know, everything's good and a good mood. We want to be around an introvert when we want to just share what's on our mind. Stop talking, I'm talking here. Okay? And that's kind of normal for both of us, or for all people. So we want to be conscientious about that. Ongoing or outgoing, but able to relax alone. Energetic without being hyper. Assertive, engaging, and socially confident. Now here's some very important thing to remember. Why did you become the way you became? Why are you the way you are? Like, is it really that you are temperamentally introverted or extroverted? Is that really what it is? Or are you actually, so for example, you might actually have naturally been extroverted, but now you had this opportunity to speak out in a group for the first time, and when you did, you were completely ridiculed. And it was so painful that even though you want to be extroverted, you can't do it. Okay? So that would be a struggle between the two. And the reason this is important is because if you're going to help somebody go from introverted to extroverted to appropriately extroverted, or from excessively extroverted to appropriately extroverted, the reason that they are the way they are is going to determine how you help them. Okay? That's one of the things that you consider about this. And I can get into that a little bit more. Any other questions on that? I think somebody else, yes.
When taking the test, how do we factor in sleep? Because if I'm tired, then I wish I would have pushed myself more at a party. or I'm low motivation. But you normally, on a well-rested night, unconscious, how do you deal with lower?
So what I would say is, and this is a great question, I would say that you would want to use a slight default I didn't get enough sleep state. Okay? Because generally speaking, our natural personality comes out then. Wouldn't you agree? We lack the virtue or the self-control when we are a little bit tired. And so you can kind of know your actual temperament that way. Yes?
So is that kind of like agreeing, like, do you agree with kind of the statement I've heard where it's like your most authentic personality comes out in like an unplanned moment or a moment of pressure where like it's just raw? Is that when you think that it's like most like...
That is generally speaking your real personality. Okay? So that's very unflattering to me in my own life, by the way, I will tell you. When I'm hangry or exhausted or whatever, and I'm like, man, I am a jerk. Like, I got to make sure that I'm conscientious about my sleep so that the real me doesn't come out, because nobody's going to like it. Okay? Now, it's also a little unfair when I say this. And the reason it's unfair is because you're impaired. Okay? And when you're impaired, there's a very strong argument that you're also not yourself. So if you pay attention to the wording that I used, the wording that I used is, I would take the test as though you're slightly deprived of these things. Okay? Because, man, I am like so good after Starbucks. Like I am like right on. Okay? Whereas before that, maybe not so much. Okay, so does that make sense? I think if you take that test too far on one side or the other, it's problematic. Here, let me go back.
Agreeableness is your capacity.
Okay. Too little? Critical, combative, contrarian, argumentative, self-centered. Too much? People-pleasing, unjustly self-sacrificing, conflict avoidant, lacks boundaries. You know what you have? You have something called suicidal philanthropy. Okay? Oh, I give, and 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 then I hate. Okay? Because I gave so much. You're the person that goes to the meeting and somebody says, hey, can you do this? Sure, I can do that. And you walk down the hall going, what the hell did I say? I can't do it. No, I have to work all weekend, and then I have to spend all sorts of time on Monday resenting them for saying yes. Okay? That's problematic. Okay, so it's important that we look at this from the center point: empathetic, kind, cooperative, warm-hearted, and tactful. That's where you want to be. Now, would you say that this determines career success too? Where? Higher or lower? The lower you are in agreeability, the higher your level of career success. Yes. Not deficits. If you're deficit, it's a problem. If you're deficit, it's a problem. But if you're at the lower end of all these things, because then you don't walk into a meeting and say, I've been working 85 hours, and I'm making, I've been here 7 years, and minimum wage, I was like hoping I could get a nickel raise. No, okay, I think that's fair. Okay, that's the agreeable person. Okay, they are always making excuses for poor behavior. Okay, the agreeable parent, well, at least my kid's not, they just flunked the test, they're not taking drugs. Well, at least it's just marijuana. Well, at least they don't do marijuana every day. It's not marijuana in the morning, it's not cocaine. And then the cocaine parent says, well, it's not their heroin. They're not doing heroin. Then the heroin parent says, well, at least they didn't kill somebody. And the murdering parent says, at least they didn't kill everyone. And the one who did kill everyone says, at least you're not Hitler. There's a lower standard for everything, always, at all times. When one of my daughters was 15 and we were going to go out for Easter brunch, she had ripped jeans on, we were going to a nice place. I said, you need to put a nice dress on. And she responded like every 15-year-old girl. Okay, Dad, let me find one. Or maybe not. And she goes, why? And by the way, because I have 9 kids and she wasn't my oldest at that time, I just learned what to say. I said, because I'm big and mean, put the dress on. It's a simple conversation. So she did. And when we got there, she saw somebody, a grown man, wearing ripped jeans. And she said, look, Dad, he's got ripped jeans on. And I said, I know. And I bet you if you sit here long enough, you'll see somebody with ripped, cut-off shorts on. And if you're long enough, ripped cut-off shorts with midriff. Then there's going to be a dude that comes in with really weird ripped cut-up shorts and no shirt on at all. And then there's going to be somebody who comes in here eventually, 10, 15 years from now, completely naked and all tatted up. There is no low standard that humans will not go after, but we're not going after that. They aim down, you're a Durand, you aim up. That's simple. Now the phlegmatic has a very difficult time with that. Because the phlegmatic is like, well, what if it makes him upset to wear clothes? They probably were pure-hearted about it. And they probably feel good in their all tatted up naked body in the restaurant. Stop it. Okay? But that's what happens. Okay? You're all kind of relating to that in one way or another, because you've been around that person one way or another. You're like, stop making excuses for bad people. Stop judging everyone. You know?